Hello. In this video, we're going to talk about something called anthropomorphism and how it's applied in both cartoons and comic books. So let's talk about the word. Anthropomorphism is a really big word that basically means giving human traits to things that are not human. In this case, traits means personality aspects or characteristics. So treating something that's not human, having it act as if it were in your story. I've broken it down into 6 types of anthropomorphism. There's actually 4 types and 2 subcategories. And the first one is animal. It's when you have an animal acting like a person. And I would say easily the most famous example of that throughout the world would be Mickey Mouse. You can go practically to any corner of the world, say the words Mickey Mouse, and everybody goes, oh yeah, Mickey Mouse. We know Mickey Mouse. Probably followed closely by Bugs Bunny. But Mickey Mouse is a mouse, but he doesn't act like a mouse. He wears clothes, he drives a car, he has a girlfriend. These are more things that a person would do, perhaps, than a mouse. So they're certainly acting more like people. That would be an example of animal anthropomorphism. And then you have vegetation. Vegetables, or in this case, plants, trees, bushes, fruits, vegetables, that act like people. If you've ever heard of VeggieTales, the whole show is based on vegetables and fruits acting like people. There's also Annoying Orange. There's plenty of examples where they do this. So in cartoons and comic books, you can have that going on as well. So vegetation would be anything that's a plant type life, trees, bushes again, behaving like a person. And then you have objects. So you have animal, vegetation, objects. Now an object is just what you think it is. It's an object. If you've ever seen Thomas the Train, that's anthropomorphism. If you've ever seen the Disney cartoon Beauty and the Beast, Beauty goes into the castle, what's the first thing she runs into? A clock and a candle holder that are really people, but they're actually objects, but they're acting like people at the moment. So we know this when we see it. We've seen it plenty of times in cartoons and comic books, but using it in your story, you want to sometimes know how it's used and why it's used. You'll be able to get more out of it. So that would be object. And then you have a subset or a subgroup of object called food, because food is an object, but it's not like other objects. Food is always food. So anything that's actually food and can only be food would be an object, but it's a very special group or subset of objects. So you could have pizza, soup, a hamburger, a sandwich, a burrito, acting like people. So if you had a character that was an apple is only food when a person decides to eat it. It's always vegetation. So in this case, food items would be things that could only be food. They couldn't be a carrot or an apple or something along those lines. That would actually be vegetation. Then you come to the next group or type, nature. And things in nature that when you have them act like people would be, again, anthropomorphism. If you have lightning, if you have a character who's a little fire running around, or a drop of water running around, when you have elements of nature acting like people. Now, you have a subgroup of nature called celestial. And celestial is another big word, and it just means things from the sky or that belong in the sky. So I know you've seen this without thinking about it and going, hey, that's a cartoon aspect. That's anthropomorphism. I know you've seen it on ads, you've seen it on billboards, you've seen it in the newspaper, you've seen it in magazines, especially around summer times, as they'll show a cartoon of a big happy sun in the sky with a smiley face wearing sunglasses. Sun doesn't wear sunglasses, that's ridiculous. But giving it that aspect, so the moon, a face in the moon, the sun, stars, comets, asteroids, shooting stars, rainbows, clouds, these are essentially celestial aspects of nature from the sky. So you can have tornadoes that look all mean and say, I'm going to tear things up, I'm the tornado. That's a sense of anthropomorphism. You've seen Old Man Winter a lot of times in old cartoons where they'll have like a very cold cloud with a mean face blowing cold air onto people and trying to freeze them and things like that. Electricity, gravity, any of these things that come from nature and you make them act or behave like humans and give them personalities and characteristics, that's anthropomorphism. And now I'm going to show some examples of that in cartoon form. An elephant all dressed up in a tuxedo with a top hat and cane. That's clearly not what an elephant would be doing normally. That's much more like a person. Over here we see a very happy apple. He's smiling and having a good day. Clearly this is a sense of anthropomorphism, vegetation anthropomorphism. We see the hammer walking along. And if you look closely, the hammer is carrying an even smaller hammer. Clearly this person is out to do some work. It's anthropomorphism. Then we have food. We have a nice happy cheeseburger sitting back here looking around. And then we move on to nature. So here's what I was talking about earlier. Cold wind, cold weather, winter. You've seen this plenty of times before. Old man winter getting involved, and it's anthropomorphism. And then the last one over here is the one I actually mentioned earlier. You've seen that examples of this plenty of times before, I'm sure, where the sun is wearing sunglasses, it's smiling, it has an expression, it has a face. Not really what the sun should be doing, but all of these are examples of each of the types of anthropomorphism, the categories. So you've seen these millions of times, I'm sure. Now, knowing how they're used and how to use them will allow you to get more out of them as you put them into your cartoons and your work.